Welcome to the Put on Waivers Media Group, home of the Put on Raiders podcast and the Student Body Right podcast. This is your place for the best breakdowns and the best insight for those who fight on and bleed silver and black. Now, here are your hosts, Dwayne Douglas and Ryan Holmes.
And welcome to another glorious episode of the Put on Raiders podcast. I'm your host, Dwayne Douglas, along with Ryan Holmes, and we are podcasting off the beautiful shores of the Pacific Ocean. Beautiful day out here in Southern California. Ryan's been a traveling man the last couple of weeks, so his eyes a little groggy right now, but he's fighting through. Like he's no days off for Ryan Holmes here on the Put on Raiders podcast. RTPW podcast is my Twitter handle, and then RHOLM22 is Ryan's. This is Put on Waivers media channel, so everything Raiders on the Put on Raiders podcast and the Student Body Right podcast as well. So if you fight on and you are members of the Raider Nation, you are in the right place as far as that goes. Subscribe, like, dislike, all that stuff like that. We want it all, and we got some questions here later on in the show. I want to thank those for sorry, and also on Instagram, Put on Waivers _podcast and at Put on Raiders podcast. So we couple cities, Encinitas, California, listening to the Put on Raiders podcast, Paris, Texas, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Las Vegas, Nevada, and Kingston, Jamaica. I was happy to see that one on there. I was happy to see that on there. That was nice. A lot of things happened today, Ryan, and the National Football League, as they always do. I know we can't start the show with Deion Sanders losing a couple of toes in surgery. So we'll start with Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers makes a decision. It's a decision that we felt like it just makes sense. They're out of divisional. Their non-divisional opponents are the AFC, I think AFC East and NFC East this year. So you have a weaker schedule. You only have to face Kirk Cousins. I mean, as far as like in the division, it just makes sense. The path is easier through the NFC. He's been a Packer his whole life, and he makes a decision to stay with Green Bay.
Yeah, it was the most logical choice that we've talked about. Clearly now with Russell Wilson leaving the NFC too, the NFC is going to have a couple of teams at the top, the Rams. Obviously, the Cowboys can never figure it out, and then the Packers. There's not a lot of depth there. And with that division, they're guaranteed to win the division as long as he stays healthy.
Yep.
They get a home game. There's a good chance they could get a bye in the first round again, although they've had that recently and it hasn't paid off. But
maybe it should be a wild card team. Maybe it should be a wild card team.
At his age, he needs to win. He's got 2-3 years left.
Yeah.
And the best place for him to do that, without a doubt, was Green Bay. And he made a pretty good decision. And it came down to, they're going to keep Devontae Adams now. They tagged him today, and this league's about cash. And they can create cap room very easily as long as they're willing to kick the can down the road, kind of like the Saints did towards the end of Drew Brees' career. So it's a good move for Green Bay. Now, what do they do with Jordan Love? Be interested to see where he ends up. He could end up in Seattle. Like, why wouldn't they take one of those second-round picks they got in that Russell Wilson deal and just flip it over to Green Bay and try to get him in there and see what he can do? Because clearly they're starting over in Seattle.
So we in this show we'll do some draft stuff as well too, folks. So I know you've been chiming for that, so we'll get that done as well for you. We're not doing quarterbacks today, but like, one of the questions that we have is, if you were Seattle, do you like the prospect of Malik Willis or Jordan Love going forward? Because obviously we know Drew Lock is not the guy.
No, I think it comes down to what system are they going to run offensively.
Yeah.
Like, we need to know how long is Pete Carroll going to be there, and two, who the offense coordinator is going to be. If it's still Shane Waldron and you're still running a similar offense to what he had with the Rams, where you're running a lot of those tight formations, a lot of play action type stuff, I'm not sure Malik Willis is a fit in that. He's going to need to be somewhere where it's a lot more creative, throws the ball down the field more. I don't know if Jordan Love fits that either. I'm sure I would think that Kenny Pickett might be a better fit if that's the way they're going to go. But then we can get in and talk about hand size in Seattle and rain and weather. So that might not be a fit. So it's going to be interesting to see which direction they go. Obviously, they have Drew Lock as a stopgap for another year or two. I'm not sure what his contract situation is. I believe second round pick, so it's a 4-year deal. I think he's been there too, so they might have him for 2 more years. And clearly they're going to draft someone in this draft that they have their eyes on. I would think it'd be more like Matt Corral, just personally. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Another quarterback made some news today. When Russell Wilson is traded for a myriad of draft picks, Shelby Harris, Noah Fant, and is that it? Is that I missed the
Drew Lock.
And Drew Lock as well.
Yeah.
I don't do we count Drew Lock? But yeah, Drew Lock as well. So we'll see what happens there. But he does come to the AFC West. So just from a Seattle perspective, Schneider, Carroll, they went to Super Bowl a couple years in a row. They've been a perennial playoff team forever, and they're banking on their eyes that the best of Russell Wilson is behind him. That he's not that they with a division where San Fran has a young quarterback, and it could be quarterback turmoil in with the Cardinals, but the Cardinals seem to kind of thrive on that a little bit because they end up at least having a good enough record to be, a pretty good playoff, a pretty good record to always to be a playoff contender, if you will. They said, they're not going to play with the Rams and everybody. They're just going to start over. So that is something that's going to be a big one because, people are going to remember, hey, this is a situation where, you're going to be remembered as the guy who, yes, you drafted Russell Wilson, but if they're able to do, God forbid, do great things in Denver, you're going to also be remembered as the guy who traded him when you could have kept him and tried to tweak your roster and do what you have to do to keep winning football games.
Yeah, I think this was just a difference of opinion in how the offense was going to be run between Russell Wilson and obviously the coaching staff. Because for years we've heard let Russ cook, and Pete Carroll's over there saying we're going to run the ball 55, 60% of the time. And Russell, I think, kind of forced his way out here and let him know last year that he wasn't happy. And clearly Seattle is in a full rebuild. They released Bobby Wagner today. So they lost the leader of their defense. What are they going to do with Jamal Adams? I don't think he's going to want to hang around there. He's probably going to try to force his way out here too. What are they going to do with Tyler Lockett?
How did Jamal Adams leave the Jets and then come back to the Jets in the trade? Because he ended up in Seattle and they ended up being a Jet type, like just roster with all these people getting off this team.
That trade never made sense for Seattle. Why they all went all in and gave up 2 number ones for Jamal Adams, but
Schneider.
They're basically in a full rebuild. What are they going to do with DK Metcalf? He's due up for a contract here pretty quickly. Does Tyler Lockett want to hang around with Drew Lock? There's some pieces on that team that they can move, but there's not a lot. So this is they're going to scrape it down to the bare bones. You're probably looking at a 4 or 5 win team next year if all things goes well. How long is Pete Carroll going to hang around if they don't turn around quickly? So it's going to be really interesting to see what direction they go. And like you said, if Elway pulls Russell Wilson in there and they get to a Super Bowl, win a Super Bowl, kind of like he did with Peyton Manning at the end of Peyton Manning's career, people are going to ask, why did Seattle get rid of him at the end? But I think it was just a mutual thing on both ends. So Russell Wilson wants to throw the football. He wants to be able to do what he wants to do in offense. He wants to cook, as they say. And Denver's going to let him do it. Nathaniel Hackett is a rookie coach. That's my only reservation is you got a rookie head coach that hasn't really done it. They're going to lose some pieces on that defense. And can he make the decisions he needs to make in a stacked AFC West to get that team to the playoffs? I'm not sure that Russell Wilson's the answer to get into the Super Bowl, but he's clearly a lot better than what they had in Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock.
Yeah, I mean, you look up and down, like you go to, if you go quarterback record with him, 104 to 53, one tie. But listen, I'm not gonna go into like the roster and the guy has been a top quarterback. As far as the let Russ cook stuff, like I'd have to see to see how many attempts, but he's usually around like, let's see here, usually around five,
400 last year.
like 400 last year because of injury, but usually around
Yeah.
over 500 for the most. A lot of these 500, 400. Early in the year, early in his career, obviously he was doing maybe a little bit of the Ben Roethlisberger when he first came to the league. But he's been a guy who's been, is that a low number of pass attempts if you go by pass attempts in those seasons?
Probably average.
Probably around
It's not,
average. So how much more are they going to
it's not
throw?
at the top of the league.
Yeah, I mean, how much more are they going to throw? I think that's the question. Also, Denver has improved their offensive line. They'll probably try to get more offensive line help as well. I think another thing when I think about this deal is how do I Russ playing on 19 million? No, yes, he is not. So so he's not paying on 19 million. He just saw a guy. He could walk into the room and say, I've been to more Super Bowls than this guy. So whatever the non-owner of the Broncos has in store, because there's no owner on the team, but they're still functioning with Patton as the GM and the new rookie head coach. I think the part of it is like that I'm worried about for that team is like, yes, you got to take, if you have the opportunity to take the swing. You have a history of this swing being, Elway won late in his career. He won it with Peyton. He as an executive won it with Peyton Manning, and now you have Russell Wilson. But defensively, like, what are they going to be defensively this year? You have a guy who is Nathaniel Hackett didn't call the plays last year. And in with the Packers, so he was the first time play caller. Like it's a pressure cooker, but I mean you have to want that pressure obviously because with life with no quarterback is just horrible. Do you feel like Seattle is just getting out of that Russell Wilson business at the right time? Or do you feel like this is just, like you said, it's more not about whether or not he can play or not. It's just like, hey, we have an opportunity to rebuild this. We found a destination that he wants to go to, because obviously he didn't want to go to Washington and nobody wants to go to Washington. So how do you feel about that part of it? Do you think I'm not going to say to use the word wash. I think that's a silly thing because he can still play to a certain level. But do you feel like he is a guy who can, kind of really push this team? Obviously, they need more. The offseason has started off with a bang, but they need more. Do you think they can hit with his ability? Can they take that next step with some of these receivers? And some of them are improving, some of them are good players, but we have to see what they do with Russell Wilson at the helm. What's the biggest questions you have for the Broncos?
I can make the argument there's better receivers in Denver than there is in Seattle. He's walking in there with Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy's still there, KJ Hamler's there, Albert O's at tight end, Tim Patrick's a very good receiver, and so he's going to have weapons there. I think he can still play. Obviously, he tried to fight through a hand injury, a finger injury on his throwing hand last year, where most guys wouldn't have played. His numbers, 65% completion, 25 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, not bad. It's not what he normally does, but if this guy can get up to, the 30 touchdown range with under 10 interceptions and complete 65 to 70% of the balls, he's going to take this team to the playoffs as long as the defense does their end. And that my question is, Vic Fangio's not there anymore. Is the defense, do the guys they have fit the scheme of the new coordinator? Is Von Miller coming back?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of questions. Denver's definitely trending up. Now, can Russ stay healthy? He's played 16 games every year of his career except for last year, and he played 14. He probably should have played 10 or 11, but he came back early from that injury and fought through it. He's getting up there in age. He's going to be 34 next year. So he's at that point now where he probably has 4, 5, 6 years left. These guys are playing till 40 now. So I fully expect them to extend him here pretty quickly, get him on a 4 or 5 year deal, spread this cap hit out, give him a new deal, and then go heavy. They clearly need a right tackle. They need to upgrade the offensive line. They have the skill position players, and then they need to. I think the linebacking core in Denver needs a makeover. Why wouldn't Bobby Wagner want to go join his buddy Russell Wilson in Denver? They could turn that thing around pretty quickly and go from a 7-10 team to a 10 or 11 win team. I feel bad for Vic Fangio. he was sitting around with a
I was thinking the
top-rated
same
defense,
thing. I know.
and they gave him Teddy Bridgewater and they gave him Drew Lock, and now like he's gone, and they're like, oh, here's Russell Wilson. What could Vic Fangio have done? And not that he was a great decision maker with time management stuff, but can you imagine if with the defenses he was running out there, if he had a quarterback as good as Russell Wilson, Vic Fangio would still be the head coach.
Yeah, weren't they ranked like 11th last year, and they had one of the worst offensive units in football. So yeah, I mean, if you're a Fangio, you gotta be saying kind of that same thing. Like, what the good looking out, guys. Thanks for fixing the vehicle fixing the house as soon as I leave. And out there. So so the coaching part of it, the wide receivers. I mean, I gotta see that connection. I gotta see that connection go first. I think that obviously those young guys are gonna flock for this moment. They're gonna do everything in the offseason to work with him to get on the same page and get in early. So as far as that goes, you'll see the Courtland Suttons and the Jerry Judy's biggest issue is not really getting open, it's just holding on to the football. Drop. So yeah, it's just drop. So, and we've seen players like Amari Cooper go through that stuff like that as well. So we'll have to see what happens there. If Jerry Jeudy had more, if he struggled to get off the line of scrimmage and struggled to get open, that would be more of a deal for me. For Mike from the 760, what do the Raiders do next? So I had to dip into to Twitter Spaces today just to hear the carnage, because I like to hear the carnage. So I would just
saw you in there and I was like, nope, I'm not doing it.
I think it's funny because it's funny because it's like, for me it's just like what they do. I was just like, I was Twitter, I was like, just forfeit the season, just joking around. I think obviously it's a decision to make. I think you go forward, and you can't punt seasons. Like, in my opinion, like it's just you don't get opportunities to be a head coach. You don't get opportunities to run a team. If you punt a season without it being the opportunity for the first pick to get like a Peyton Manning, or to get like, a John Elway, to get an all-time great, then that's how you punt a season, or Andrew Luck. Like, that's how you punt a season. You have to just do what you do and build your team and build your squad. The issue they're going to have, I think, if there is the Raiders have stuff going on where they need a right tackle as well. So if it's a right tackle situation and they're kind of going against, the Denver Broncos for the same kind of guy, is that guy going to go to Denver if the money's the same, or is he going to go to Las Vegas? So I think for them, besides Andy Reid, there's a very young and inexperienced division as far as the head coaches go. So we'll see what happens there. I like the staff that they put together. So, you have to do what you have to do to build. Well, we all know what the holes of the Raiders are. You build it, and then you play the games and see what happens. I'm not one to say punt a season. I think that it definitely helps the Broncos. The Broncos are a better team today than they were yesterday. I'd have to be on Raider Nation Radio to tell you something otherwise. But it doesn't mean that the Raiders can't compete with the teams in the division.
Yeah, I'm going to go the opposite route. They're not punting the season. Josh McDaniels, this is his last go around. If they don't succeed. Dave Ziegler didn't take this job to punt. I actually like all four teams being good, because there's an opportunity for Kansas City to get more losses and kind of bring them back down to where all the teams in the division can be within striking distance. The Raiders clearly can compete with the Chargers. They've proven that. They've beaten the Broncos, so we'll see what happens with the addition of the quarterback. Clearly, it makes them a better squad, but are they that much better than Las Vegas? I'm not ready to say that. I think the first thing they need to do is fix the secondary. I mean, now you're facing three elite quarterbacks, and I'm going to use the word elite. They're all elite. They have been or will be quickly. I think Herbert has proven that. So they have to make some additions in the secondary. The problem is they don't have any cap room. They have $18 million. So they do need to extend some people, move some money around. If that's Derek Carr, so be it. If it's Yannick Ngakoue, if they feel comfortable with him moving forward, extend him, lower that cap number. If someone would please take Cleveland Farrell off their hands for anything to clear $10 million, do it. But yeah, they're going to have to be creative. They don't have a lot of established players that they can extend to lower cap numbers. That's the problem they're facing.
Yeah.
I really wish, imagine if they had the cap space with Corey Littleton and Kwiatkowski and they could go get a Bobby Wagner, but they can't do that.
Yeah.
They're going to have to, make a splash at one or two spots and then be bargain shopping for the rest of it. They're not going to be able to go around and fill all these needs right away. So
the Cal Van Noyes kind of guys.
Right now it's the secondary because they can't run out there with the corners they have under contract right now and compete against these offenses. So I don't think they're in the JC Jackson world. It was reported today. It looks like it's the 49ers, Dolphins, Chargers were mentioned. I think there was one other team. The Raiders were not mentioned as that. So Stefan Gilmore, can they get him over for, 10, 12 million on a 1-year prove it deal? I don't know, but something. They need a number one corner in this division. So that's where I think they attack first in free agency. I'm not so concerned about the offensive linemen. Guys are going to become available. Guys are going to get released. There's going to be veterans out there that can be, average right tackles. They don't need a Pro Bowl guy over there. They just need a guy that's better than what they ran out there last year. They clearly need corners because they're going to be in a lot of nickel and dime. They don't have any corners under contract, really. They have 2 or 3. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and then Trayvon is not, he's not somebody. I mean, they need somebody who you can count on. No question about it. Do you think Taylor from the 858 wants to know? Do you think the Broncos will redo Wilson's deal? You bet, you damn sticky, you damn skippy. They're gonna do that. So I would not worry. I would not sweat that one. That's definitely gonna be something that they are definitely gonna do as far as that goes. Before we get into the draft, where I want to take the defensive side and during this draft preview, and then Ryan's gonna take the offensive side. Do you have anything else as far as like NFL pressing things that are going on right now that you worry about? I mean, I think that the Giants are in the Mitchell Trubisky business, which is interesting.
Yeah,
but they're bringing him so he can fight with Daniel Jones to see who can be that starting quarterback in New York.
Well, Dable had him last year, so he knows the system, and he can run around. That's not a good sign for Daniel Jones, especially when they're about to tear down that roster. Yeah. I don't know what kind of evaluation you're getting on Daniel Jones when you're going to try to get rid of Barkley. Clearly, they're going to dismantle the defense. Bradbury's probably gone. So we'll see what happens. Blake Martinez is probably not coming back. I think the big thing is, I think a lot of Raider fans are panicking, like you said today on Twitter. Like the offseason hasn't even started. We don't know what these rosters are going to look like. A lot of veterans are going to become available. So don't get lost in like the available free agents as of March 8th, because tomorrow there's going to be guys available. Bobby Wagner wasn't available 5 hours ago. Now he's available. Teams are going to make a bunch of maneuvers and guys are going to get let go. So like I said, I think the Raiders, might target a couple of guys early, and then you might see them be quiet for a little while and then build this thing with some guys that are scheme fits. I don't think we're going to see the aggressive go after the big name, Al Davis, kind of, John Gruden, where they just big names are on the street. They're connected to the Raiders and they went out and got some of those guys. Yeah. And I think that's the right move to do here. They need to build this thing up through the draft, but they have to do it quickly because Derek Carr, like we've talked about, is 30, 31 years old. So they can't wait 4 or 5 years. Like they need to be able to go out and add some pieces. I don't think they're going to fix the roster in one off season. There's just too many holes. All the players they missed on in the draft, all the issues they've had with Ruggs and Arnett in the first round picks when Abram's not on this roster and Farrell's not on this roster a year from now. Those holes are going to start to show up, but be patient. I like the coaching staff. I like the front office, and this team will compete this year. Are they going to go 14-3? Probably not. Not in that division, but can they go 10-7, 11-6 and win the division? There's a chance, but we just need to see what they put around the pieces that they have. But it's not going to be big name, slam dunk Pro Bowl guys at every position like every Raider fan on Twitter wants.
Yeah, it's not happening that way. But I mean, look at what team has that, so I mean, a lot of times, like a lot of teams don't have that. So as well, and a lot of times, what you look at, I know they have both. I mean, the Rams had stars all over the place, but they also had a lot of role players who people don't pay attention to. Who helped them win that Super Bowl as far as that goes. Listen, you've made it to the end of the video. We appreciate that time. Like, comment, all those things. Subscribe to the Student Body Right USC podcast, and Click on some other episodes, and Raider Nation, if you want to join in too, let's go. Fight on.